Hello everyone, glad to be back. Today is 25th of November, Saturday, so I wish you a wonderful day and a great weekend. Usually on Saturdays I have a day off also, but today I made decision to record update anyway and be active on Telegram. Also, now it's 10 o'clock morning Moscow time. I'm Levan Gudadze and this is my first update for the day, in which I will share all the main news that are making headlines in Russian media outlets and Russian language pages on different internet platforms. Second update will be a little bit late on my Patreon page, in which I will share additional news that will be reported by Russian media, as I usually do in informal talks and the news summaries on my Patreon. Unfortunately, I was unable to make update for Patreon yesterday, so I'll do it today. That being said, let's talk about news now, and I will start with short summary of the situation on Ukrainian battlefield. According to latest reports from Russian media and Russian military channels, during the previous night, Russian armed forces conducted yet another quite massive drone and missile strikes, mainly drone strikes on logistical and military infrastructure of Kiev regime, and I did share information about on my Telegram this morning. So according to reports from number of sources, Russian armed forces last night conducted strikes on military and logistics infrastructure of Kiev regime in the Kherson and Zaporozhye, as well as Nikolaev, Dnipropetrovsk, Kirovograd, Cherkasy, Poltava, Kharkiv, Sumy, and the Kiev regions. So as you can see, quite a large-scale strikes on logistical and military infrastructure of Kiev regime. And I did share a few minutes ago also these several videos with Russian drones flying over the Kiev. And according to local officials, 120 institutions were left without power, and power lines were damaged as a result of Russian strikes. I guess during the day, Russian Defense Ministry will share with public additional information about exact targets that were struck by Russian drones, and of course I will share this additional news on my Telegram and in the second update. That's been said, let's talk about line of contact now. And well, according to latest reports, as it was expected, operational pause mainly holding on all along the front line, with a few exceptions on the southern flank on southern sectors in Kherson region. Ukrainian forces are still trying to continue the local scale offensive operations in direction of left bank. More and more units have been sent from the right bank towards the left bank of the Dnieper River, but Russian side pounding basically Ukrainian units with from air, with the air bombs, by long range artillery, with drones. And if situation for Ukrainian units on the left bank was disastrous, as time goes by, this situation is becoming absolutely catastrophic for Ukrainian units. I guess this is one of the reasons why on daily basis we are receiving information about surrenderings of Ukrainian military personnel whenever they have opportunity. Really, main goal at this point of Kiev regime is to enlarge somehow the small foothold in Krinky area, which is between Novaya Kakhovka and Aleshki, let's say, and Ukrainian forces did try quite a few times to establish, to enlarge their controlled territory from central part of Krinky towards this forested area right next to this small village, to cut this main road between Aleshki and Novaya Kakhovka. But every time they are entering these forested areas, they are becoming under heavy fire of Russian artillery, Russian airstrikes, and are forced to retreat towards Krinky again. And at some point, by the way, this central part of Krinky is in such a heavy fire that at some point Ukrainian side will find it difficult to even dig in, because they will have nowhere to dig. There is nothing left almost in this area. But yet again, Kiev regime wants some media attention, wants some media victory, and I'm afraid they will continue to sacrifice hundreds of their military personnel in this sector. Right now, according to some reports, Kiev regime has a small foothold on these islands, not far away from Golaya Pristan, also right next to Antonovsky Bridge, destroyed Antonovsky Bridge and railway bridge, and in Krinky, by the way, in this settlement. Kiev regime may try to establish additional footholds in some other directions also, but overall, as I said many times before, Russian side is using this left bank as a trap for Kiev regime, and because Zelensky and his associates are unable to learn anything from their previous mistakes, they are, as I said, they are sending more and more units to this suicidal operation. Situation is under full Russian control, and nothing may and can happen that will influence this sector of the front line in immediate future. When it comes to Zaporozhye and South Donetsk sectors of the front line, yet again, operational pause is holding. Russian side has the initiative and are conducting local-scale offensive operations. And it's only a matter of time, when Russian units will encircle and forced to lay down arms and surrender Ukrainian grouping of forces in Orekhov bridgehead, in this area, by the way, where this Rabotina settlement is. Only settlement that Kiev regime did manage to establish control over during this so-called Ukrainian counteroffensive. But yet again, as I said, initiative is in Russian hands, and nothing is happening that will influence this sector of the front line in immediate future. In South Donetsk direction, also Russian forces were conducting local-scale offensive operations, especially in Vremevsky salient area, quite successfully, by the way, but some media outlets did report yesterday that Kiev regime tried to regain initiative and they launched some local-scale offensive. They did try to regroup their forces in South Donetsk direction, but their movements was tracked by Russian intelligence, and Russian long-range artillery and airstrikes did basically neutralize all the threats from this regrouping Ukrainian forces. Without achieving anything, they lost quite significant number of manpower and military equipment. When it comes to Donetsk direction, of course, on the southern flank of Donetsk direction, main hotspot is Avdiivka, where Russian forces are continuing to improve their positions on daily basis. But as I said quite a few times before, my understanding is that final push or final assault on Avdiivka will begin in about 3 to 5 weeks time, when the lack of supply and reinforcement and weather conditions will begin play significant role and will significantly downgrade battle readiness of Ukrainian garrison of Avdiivka. And I expect, by the way, that in Avdiivka we will see big Ukrainian units lay down arms and surrendering on the scale of battalion. I expect this type of news to be reported anytime now, anytime, any day. I believe one of the main directions of Russian side in this area is to communicate with the Ukrainian side, to persuade them to stop fighting for Zelensky and his criminal associates, or the Western masters and the geopolitical interests. And I believe Russian side will be successful in persuading big number of Ukrainian military personnel to stop fighting for them and for the Western geopolitical interests, basically, and will surrender. Also, by the way, northern flank of Donetsk direction, Bakhmut and surrounding areas are somewhat active. On the southern flank of Bakhmut, Ukrainian forces again tried, by the way, to regain initiative. They did conducted some local-scale offensives in Kurdyumovka area without achieving anything on more or less significant scale. Another suicidal operation, basically, and I guess it will take no longer than a day or two, and Russian side will neutralize this Ukrainian units that are conducting these local scale offensives. And when it comes to northern sector of the Bakhmut initiative is in Russian hand, of course, and it's Russian forces that are constantly improving their current positions. It's only a matter of time, by the way, and I guess Russian forces will regain control over all the territories that they used to hold when Bakhmut become under full Russian control. And after that, it will not take too long when Konstantinovka and Chesovyar will become a main direction of Russian offensive operations. And when it comes to Konstantinovka, by the way, some media channels did report, based on Russian Defense Ministry, that Kiev regime is planning to conduct provocation on the chemical plant in this settlement, which is quite a possibility, really. Kiev regime conducted provocations many times before, and I definitely would not be surprised if they will conduct some provocation with use of chemical instances, or by destroying chemical plant in Konstantinovka also. And when it comes to, but Russian side did make sure that world community is informed about such risks, and if Kiev regime will does that kind of provocation, they will be unable to blame Russia. Nobody will believe them that it was Russia. So, you know, but still, by the way, we are talking about Kiev regime, but these stupid mass murderers and criminals, they are capable of any atrocities, absolutely, and they can sacrifice entire Konstantinovka, by the way, and all the civilians that remain in this settlement for some media attention. Zelensky definitely can kill thousands of its own citizens, and did it many times, and doing this on daily basis, basically, by sending Ukrainian militaries on these suicidal operations, and they will sacrifice civilians also to somehow regain attention of Western public, Western media, and Western ruling class. But yet again, Russian side did warn world community about such risks. When it comes to northern sectors from Seversk to Liman and up to Kupiansk, situation is also operational pause. It's mainly artillery duels between the sides and local scale reckoning force operations. Some Russian military channels reported that Sinkovka, by the way, not far away from Kupiansk, is under Russian control now. This is Sinkovka, this small settlement here, only a few kilometers away from Kupiansk, but I did not see any photo or video confirmation that Sinkovka is under Russian control, so I will take this information with a pinch of salt. It's a possibility, certainly, that Russian forces entered this settlement, but let's wait when some photo and video confirmation will become available. And this is it when it comes to short summary of the situation on Ukrainian battlefield. Operational pause, as I said, is holding mainly all along the front line, with just a few exceptions. Kherson direction, for example, and Avdiivka area, let's say. And well, before I continue, let me thank you all, dear friends, for your time and attention, and of course special thank to members of our community that are supporting my work with small donations through PayPal, Buy Me a Coffee, and by subscribing to my Patreon page. Without you, of course, this project would not survive even a month. So thank you very much. Let's continue with some other news now. And RIA Novosti reports about explosions that was heard in the Kiev this morning. I did mention that during the last time Russian side conducted quite a large-scale strikes on logistical and military infrastructure of the Kiev regime, and we have at least several videos on my Telegram page. You can see it if you're interested. Some small video footages of Russian drones over the Kiev. Let's see what kind of information Russian Defense Ministry will share with public about these strikes. Also, by the way, RT is reporting that according to top MP of Kiev regime, Ukraine conflict could have ended in the spring of 2022, but it did not because of Western interference. Of course, we all know this, by the way, that in March there was negotiations between March of 2022. There was negotiations between Moscow and Kyiv, and sides basically did achieve initial agreement without signing any papers, but they did agree. They had initial agreement, and then to continue work on a peace deal. But then Western ruling elites did intervene big time. They sent Prime Minister of UK at the time, Boris Johnson, into Kyiv to persuade Zelensky and his associates to continue a military operation and not to sign any agreement with Russia. And this individual, by the way, David Arhamia, who is yet again top MP of Kyiv regime and one of the leaders of Ukraine's negotiating team during that meeting between the sides in Turkey in March 2022. He is now openly saying, by the way, that yes, sides were close to achieving peace agreement, but Western ruling class did intervene, and we all know what happened next. There was no peace deal, and military operations only intensified. So let me read several sentences here. Russia was ready to stop the fighting had Ukraine agreed to remain neutral, but the West advised Kyiv to keep going. The head of President Vladimir Zelensky's parliamentary faction and the chief negotiator at the peace talks in Istanbul in 2022, by the way, in March of 2022, David Arhamia admitted on Friday. Arhamia, who heads the Servant of the People parliamentary group, told the TV, and the Servant of the People, that's a political party of Zelensky, by the way. Arhamia told the Ukrainian TV channel 1+1 that Moscow had offered Kyiv a peace deal in March 2022, but the Ukrainian side did not trust Russia. Russia's goal was to put pressure on us so that we would take neutrality. This was the main thing for them, for Russian side. They were ready to end the war if we accepted neutrality like Finland once did, and we would make a commitment that we will not join NATO. This was the main thing, said Arhamia. However, agreeing to neutrality and giving up on NATO membership would have required changes in the constitution of Ukraine, Arhamia explained. Secondly, there was no trust in the Russians that they would do this. This could only be done with security guarantees, he said. So during the talks, Arhamia added, British then Prime Minister Boris Johnson arrived in Kyiv and told Ukrainian officials to keep fighting and not sign any agreements with Moscow. So yes, Arhamia basically is confirming everything that we knew and discussed many times, not just on our channel here, but many other channels also devote time to this topic, that sides were very close to achieve peace agreements, but then Western ruling elites did intervene and basically force Kyiv regime to continue military hostilities and not sign nothing with the Russian side. That's quite unfortunate, but that's what Western ruling elite is. And the irony is, by the way, that nowadays more and more Western media outlets are publishing articles and devoting time to topic of attempts from Washington, for example, and some other major capitals in the Western world to pressure Kyiv regime to do exactly the opposite. If in March 2022 they were basically demanding Kiev regime hostilities to be continued. Nowadays, they are forcing kind of Kiev regime to stop hostilities. And we have a statement, article from Bild, by the way, German newspaper, according to which United States and Germany are planning to increase their pressure on Kiev regime so that they will begin peace negotiations with Russia. So after 500 killed Ukrainian military personnel, after a million or more than a million wounded Ukrainian militaries, after decimated Ukrainian economy and millions of Ukrainian refugees all around the world, Western ruling elites that provoked this conflict and not allowed Kiev to sign a peace agreement with Russia, these Western ruling elites are now pressuring Kiev regime to begin peace negotiations, man. That's unbelievable. And yet again, dear friends, my take on this articles, this topic, that West is pressing on Kiev regime to conduct negotiations, is a part of a bigger game, including media game of Western ruling elites. They want, I believe, they are preparing ground to blame everything on Kiev regime and distance themselves from all failures of Zelensky and his associates. And and one of the directions how they can and will do it is to come up with such articles, to authorize this type of articles, and this topic to be articulated permanently in the Western media, so that when Ukraine will be divided between its neighbors, once this conflict will end, and you know my take on this story, I believe once conflict in Ukraine will end, all Ukrainian territories, with the exception of Western regions, will become under Russian control, direct, indirect, whatever, and Western regions of Ukraine will become under control of Western neighbors of this failed state, NATO member states, namely Poland, Hungary, Romania, and possibly Slovakia. And well, what Western ruling class is doing now is to prepare ground so that when Ukraine will be divided, they will have this plausible deniability on the hands that, you know, they did try as best they could for Ukraine. They send money, they send weapons, they pressure Kiev regime to conduct negotiations, they give advices and so on, but Zelensky did not listen, Zelensky's regime did not listen, so everything to be blamed on Zelensky. That's what is going on here, by the way. That's what is in play. Let's continue. TASS news agency is reporting that Economist, by the way, one more Western media outlet, is paying attention to radio-electronic warfare in the Ukrainian battlefield, and they are acknowledging that Russian side has upper hand when it comes to radio-electronic warfare, which does allows Russia to more successfully conduct missile and drone strikes, which is true, by the way. And I did say many times before that Russian radio-electronic warfare systems are much better than Western ones that have been delivered to Kiev regime, and because superiority in radio-electronic warfare systems, Russian side, of course, has upper hand when it comes to missile and drone operations, missile and the drone strikes. And well, little by little, but Western media outlets are beginning to recognize reality on the line of contact. RIA Novosti is reporting that, and this is the one more big topic, of course, escalation in the Middle East. So according to RIA Novosti, peace deal, peace agreement, temporary ceasefire in the Gaza Strip between Israeli forces and Hamas forces are in force now, have been implemented, let's say, and sides began to release hostages, and According to this agreement, by the way, that was brokered between the sides, Hamas will release 50 Israeli hostages, and Israel will release 150 Palestinian hostages. Because of this first step towards the escalation, we did see some quite optimistic statements from some experts that maybe ceasefire will be prolonged and finally sides will begin talks about permanent de-escalation, permanent truce. But let's see. I'm not that optimistic at this point. Netanyahu, by the way, Prime Minister of Israel, is in very difficult situation. This conflict, by the way, prolongation of this confrontation is probably only chance for him to not just stay in power, but also to stay out of jail because of the criminal charges against him. And this is a serious factor, by the way. I don't know if Netanyahu will agree on permanent ceasefire anytime soon, but let's see how the situation develop. RIA Novosti also reporting that Israeli defense forces made a statement that they will not allow civilians, Palestinian civilians, to go back to northern sectors of the Gaza Strip, despite current temporary ceasefire. No surprises here. You know my take on this escalation. I was thinking from the very beginning that maybe Netanyahu's government will try to force all the Palestinians out of sector Gaza to Sinai Peninsula of Egypt. And unfortunately, we don't really have any indicators to think that Netanyahu's government has any changes in the plans or beginning to work on de-escalation. At this point, we don't really have such indicators. I'm afraid once sides will release all the hostages, we will see further escalation in the Gaza Strip. But yet again, let's hope experts that have more optimistic vision of current developments are correct, and there will be no further escalation. TASS news agency is reporting that 105 more Russian citizens have been evacuated from Gaza Strip and are now in Moscow. Plane of Russian Ministry of Emergency Situations flew Russian citizens from Egypt to Moscow. And according to latest data, about 500 Russian citizens are still waiting in the Gaza Strip to be evacuated. So this process will continue, and Russian Ministry of Emergency Situations will be active in the Egypt as long as necessary. And I reminded dear friends that Russian side did made several times statements that they will assist in evacuation to citizens of former Soviet republics. And I believe if citizens of other countries will ask for help, or other countries will ask Moscow to assist to evacuate their citizens, Moscow will provide such assistance. TASS news agency is reporting that, Foreign Minister of Turkey did call Western leaders and Western states to distance themselves from Israel and the war crimes and crimes against humanity that the Israeli government and the IDF committed against Palestinians in the Gaza Strip. Strong statement, yet another strong statement from Turkey. And of course, this statement will have no influence on the policies of the Western leaders or Western governments. We all know this. But yet again, if you remember, I did said quite a few times before that we will probably hear quite a few strong statements from Ankara, Turkish current leadership, but I don't think Ankara will really escalate with Israel significantly, which is good, by the way, in some sense, because nobody needs regional conflict in the region, in the Middle East, isn't it? So there will be strong statements from Ankara, from Tehran, from Riyadh, from Doha, from other regional major capitals, from Oman and so on. But I don't think any of these countries, I don't think third parties basically will escalate with Israel in full force in military terms, and it's good for peace in the region. Diplomatic means may not work as effectively as we would like, but that's the only way. That's the only way to go, really, to pressure some, to use some diplomatic means to pressure Netanyahu's government to stop hostilities. And when it comes to Turkey, by the way, and Turkish-Israeli relationships, we should always remember that despite these strong statements, countries are continuing their business operations as usual. And according to some reports, about 50% of oil that is imported by Israel comes from Turkish Ceyhan port on the Mediterranean. So strong statements is one thing, but on the ground, countries are continuing to do business. By the way, it is what it is. Let's continue. And TASS news agency is reporting that according to Foreign Minister of Iran, Hossein Amir Abdollahian, the United States did conducted Iran's authorities by means of communication that are remaining between the sides, and Washington did reassure Tehran that they are not planning to provoke further escalation in the region, and they are not they have no such interest to escalate, to provoke regional conflict, which is significant stuff, by the way, which is significant stuff. Maybe this activity of world community force Western ruling class to realize that if they will provoke large-scale confrontation in the region, mainly to, let's say, distract shipping in the Persian Gulf, and by this cut China from the Middle Eastern energy sources, if they had such plans, and they did, in my understanding, and they may still escalate, by the way, we cannot trust Biden's administration, isn't it? But maybe this unity of the world community when it comes to current escalation between Israel and Palestine, when almost entire world, with the exception of Western states, are calling for immediate ceasefire, maybe this reality force Western ruling class to readjust their plans, and maybe they did realize that they are in no position to not just provoke large-scale confrontation in the Middle East, but to control this provocation. They don't need just a conflict. They want this conflict to be controlled so that there will be no unexpected consequences. And because they are possibly not in a position to do so, they may choose a path of de-escalation. That's a possibility. That's possibility, and well, let's see how the situation develops. But I mentioned a few minutes ago that some experts are beginning now to express their slight optimism that situation between Israel and Palestine may go on the path of de-escalation, which will be, of course, relief for entire world if sides will agree to continue ceasefire. although damage is huge damage is done, by the way. Of course, huge damage is done, and I don't think Israeli side will manage to regain rebuild their reputation, if they had any, for quite a long time worldwide, by the way. After what Israeli army did in Gaza Strip, killing so many civilians, I guess Israeli reputation is damaged forever. And all this because of this Netanyahu and his government, this ultra-extremist government of Netanyahu. Let's continue and well, this is quite interesting news, by the way. RIA Novosti is reporting that some journalists in BBC, UK's state broadcaster, are protesting now because of the double standards when it comes to Gaza-Israeli confrontation, Palestinian-Israeli confrontation. And according to those journalists, they are allowed to report about atrocities that was committed by Hamas militants on 7th of October, but they are basically not allowed or they are censored to speak about atrocities that was committed by, under orders of Netanyahu's government, by Israeli forces. And well, I don't think anybody is surprised, by the way. We all understand that Western media only pretends to be independent. They are tools in hands of ruling class of the West. And by the way, at this point, let's be clear. I don't think any mainstream media outlet anywhere in the world are truly independent. All of them are tools of local governments or elites. If you want to see truly independent media source, just look for it in the internet. That's the only place, by the way, when you can find truly, really independent media outlets. Small, of course, because it's independent. And take my small project, by the way. It's just me here, and I'm trying my best to share with public news that is reported here in Russia, and share my take on different topics. Well, how much people can I reach, by the way? You know, our community is probably one of the smallest one when it comes to this segment of internet, but they are bigger, little bit bigger channels also, of course, and they are doing great job to inform public, to inform society. But yet again, this is only place where you can find truly independent journalists, truly independent media projects. When it comes to mass media, by the way, they are tools everywhere, not just in the West, but also in Russia, by the way. I don't watch Russian TV, for example. And one of the reasons is exactly that. I don't really need to see this propaganda constantly. I don't need this. You know, I can read news and I can make up my own mind. And it will happen everywhere. It's reality in every other country. Mainstream media is not independent. It's a tool of local governments or oligarchs or so-called elites. They may claim to be independent, but we all know that they are not. If you want to see independent media projects, look for it in the internet. Anyway, let's continue. TASS News Agency is reporting that, and by the way, it's very difficult, you know, this for independent media to be as effective as MSM is, because as I said, man, just take a look at my project. To become little bigger, to create more programs, I need to have a opportunity to pay wages. I need to hire journalists, technical staff, and so on, isn't it? And I am right now in no position to do so whatsoever. I cannot even dream about it. I barely can manage to ends to meet. And I'm afraid many other these small independent media projects on internet are experiencing very same. And only few are managing to go little bigger when they have staff and when they are able to produce more content. Because it's difficult. You are entirely dependent on support of community. And we are living in difficult times, and vast majority of people are unable to support these independent media outlets, even if they do realize how important it is to keep these independent media sources alive. But anyway, let's continue. TASS news agency is reporting that Peskov, press spokesman of Russian President Dmitry Peskov, did comment on statements that NATO will create some kind of military Schengen, so that military units of EU states will be able to move around Europe freely without bureaucratic barriers. And Peskov said that this is one more step towards escalation in this confrontation between Russia and NATO, which is basically true, of course, which is true. But I will add that, in my understanding, this idea is a part of preparations of the Western ruling class to conduct swift military operation when final decisions will be made by major capitals: Moscow, Washington, London, Brussels, Berlin, Paris, Warsaw, by the way, which will also play some role, Budapest, Bucharest. When sides, basically neighbors of Ukraine, will begin dividing this country. And as I said many times before, my understanding is that one way or another, but vast majority of modern Ukraine will be controlled by Russia, directly or indirectly, and the western regions of modern Ukraine will be controlled by its western neighbors that are NATO member states also. And when these western neighbors of Ukraine began sending their troops into western Ukraine, they will have some assistance, I believe, from other NATO states also, and to move freely, more or less freely, this vast number of military equipment and manpower and so on. Of course, they need something like military Schengen. And that's what is happening, in my understanding. That's why this initiative was become relevant. They are preparing ground and forces to establish control over the western Ukraine when time comes. RT is reporting also, by the way, that China issues nuclear warning over AUKUS pact. So the international community must address nuclear proliferation risks posed by the three-way AUKUS agreement between the US, UK and Australia. Beijing's envoy to the International Atomic Energy Agency, IAEA, has said, speaking before the IAEA Board of Governors on Friday, Chinese envoy Li Song argued that the AUKUS deal runs counter to the purpose of and objectives of the landmark Treaty on the Non-Proliferation of Nuclear Weapons and threatens the Asia-Pacific region. Well, in this case, I don't think anybody can argue with Chinese representative in IAEA. A deal between Australia and US on nuclear submarines definitely goes against this non-proliferation treaty. 100%, because submarines, this is military weapons, military systems. And even if these submarines that US will deliver to Australia will have no nuclear warheads, and they will not, these submarines are run by nuclear reactors. And because this is a weapon system, it's a nuclear weapon system. And it definitely goes against this treaty of non-proliferation. But, well, despite Chinese demarche, I don't think Canberra or Washington or London will listen to it. And of course, IAEA itself will do nothing, by the way, because this Atomic Energy Agency is a tool of Western ruling class. So they will do nothing, of course. But Australian representative definitely has a point. And if you remember, dear friends, this deal between US and Australia did cause quite diplomatic row between Australia and France, between France and US, and France and UK also, because previously Australia was planning to buy, and they even had an agreement, by the way, with France to buy French submarines, diesel electric submarines. And that contract was for something like 30 billion euros, or 50 even. Huge number, by the way. And then US intervened, and UK did intervene, and they basically forced, I guess, Canberra to break deal with France and sign new deal with the US on nuclear submarines. So, you know, and French leadership was very much angry and not happy about it. But yet again, when you have such leaders like current so-called political elite of the France, what you expect, man? No one respects French elites at this point, and because of it, France definitely losing worldwide, 100%. And by the way, this situation with submarines is a pure demonstration of it. They're supposed to be allies, isn't it? France, UK, United States, and Australia. But in reality, United States and United Kingdom, they basically played France very badly. Let's continue. And RIA Novosti is reporting that Pashinyan, by the way, Prime Minister of Armenia, made another step towards escalation with Moscow, and this time he blamed Russia that Armenia is not receiving purchased weapons from Russia in time. Well, Yerevan, by the way, is constantly trying to find ways to somehow blame on Russia everything, absolutely everything, including what happened in Karabakh region. Well, this is yet another attempt to somehow blame Russia, that Russia is not delivering weapons and Armenia is in no position to do something. Armenia has plenty of weapons, really. For example, Su-30s, by the way, one of the best 4++ generation fighter jets. Did you ever hear that Armenia use Su-30s to secure air over the Karabakh? No, because it never happened. Armenia had plenty of weapons, but Pashinyan, from the very beginning, Pashinyan and his government, their plan was to get rid of Nagorno-Karabakh. And that's what happened, basically. They did not fight for Nagorno-Karabakh, but for whatever reason, they were expecting that Russia will fight. Or they were basically misleading society of Armenia that Russia will fight or Russia should fight, when Russia never had any legal obligations to fight for Nagorno-Karabakh. If Armenia was attacked, that's a very different story. But Nagorno-Karabakh, Armenia never recognized Nagorno-Karabakh as an independent state. Armenia never recognized Nagorno-Karabakh as a part of Armenia. So what Moscow should do in that situation? But anyway, at this point, by the way, this démarche, this steps towards further escalation with Moscow from Yerevan is a daily routine. And I guess until Pashinyan and his government is in power in Armenia, relationships between two countries will only deteriorate. There's no other options there, really. RT is reporting that Polish truckers blocking now Ukrainian military cargos. Also, well, border blockade by Polish truckers is affecting a delivery of military and humanitarian goods to neighboring Ukraine. The Union media outlet has claimed. Union is a Ukrainian outlet, citing volunteers. Among the supplies that allegedly cannot reach Ukraine are fuel, drones, and thermal imaging cameras. The truckers began their protests, Polish truckers began their protests on November 6th, denouncing the EU's decision to exempt their Ukrainian counterparts from having to seek permits to cross the frontier. The law was initially relaxed after the conflict between Moscow and Kiev broke out in February 2022, but the protesters argued that the measures have led to unfair competition and have driven down prices. Well, basically, Polish truckers are out of business, really, because of actions of Brussels. Because, Ukrainian truckers can provide services on significantly cheaper scale than Polish truckers. And as we all know, Polish farmers are also not happy because European market was flooded by cheap Ukrainian agricultural produce. And there were some reports that farmers will join Polish truckers this week, maybe today, maybe tomorrow, but they are planning to join this protests also, and very similar may happen, or maybe already did began in Slovakia, where truckers and farmers are also not happy. So, well, how are you gonna comment it, man? Polish truckers have every right to protect themselves and their businesses, like Polish farmers, and if they are blocking deliveries of weapons to Ukraine, and I can only applaud them, really. You know, I can only applaud them for that. Keep it going, guys. Keep it going. And it's a serious stuff, by the way, is happening on the border between Poland and Ukraine, because yesterday, if I'm not mistaken, I did report that it's about 20,000 cars are now stuck on both sides of border crossings between Poland and Ukraine. So it's quite a big crisis emerging between on the border and between the two countries. And also, let's continue. This is gonna be last news for today's first update. RT is reporting that Russia's economy growing 3 times faster than a Eurozone, according to Guardian, by the way. And well, GDP is forecast to expand 1.5% in 2024 in Russia against the euro area's 0.5% growth. Well, I guess Guardian's 1.5% is quite conservative for Russian economy, and maybe Guardian is mistaken about 0.5% growth Eurozone economy also. Maybe it's too pessimistic of forecast, but we all know that Eurozone is definitely experiencing some severe difficulties. Anyway, let's read it. Western sanctions have so far failed to halt Russia's economic growth, which is now projected to outpace that of Eurozone. The Guardian reported on Thursday, citing investment firm Amundi. According to the company's forecast, Russia's gross domestic product will grow by 1.5% in 2024. In contrast, the Eurozone economy is set to expand by mere 0.5% next year, according to Amundi, Europe's largest fund manager in terms of assets. Well, yet again, this year, by the way, according to forecast, Russian economy will grow 3%, about 3%, 2.8, maybe 3. Next year, grow may be a little slower, maybe, or maybe not. Who knows? But well, if this Amundi company is expecting 1.5% growth Russian economy in 2024, they are also not that optimistic about the Eurozone's economy, which will grow only 0.5%, which is, I mean, it's almost on the verge of recession. I mean, 0.5%, really? Well, and yet again, by the way, who to blame? Who to blame that despite so many sanctions on Russia, Russian economy is basically doing significantly better than Eurozone economy? Who is to blame? Of course, leadership of EU, leadership of EU member states. It's a simple. It is what it is, man. And this is it for now. This is it for now. How long is this update? Almost an hour. I was hoping that update will be a little shorter, but anyway, hopefully you will find this video interesting, and if so, please, dear friends, click that like button and leave some commentary about any topic you like, or as many comments as you can. More likes and comments probably are one of the only ways we can fight back YouTube's immensely unfair and aggressive algorithm towards independent media outlets, independent media projects, let's say, on internet. And for very same reason, if you can, please share links to my videos or my channel with your friends on any of the platforms that you are active on: Facebook, Twitter, Telegram, others. And if you think this channel, this project with several channels, including this one on YouTube, Rumble, Telegram, are interesting, useful, informative, and deserves to exist, please consider to support with small donations through PayPal, Buy Me a Coffee, and by subscribing to my Patreon page. You can see links under this video in the description box or in the pinned comment. This is it for now. Once again, have a great day and a wonderful weekend. Take care and see you soon.